Rob, you there? Make the host catch. There you go. All right, so we already have 20 people in here, so we'll go ahead and just start talking. It's great to see everyone here. Glad that we can have this meeting tonight and talk about college recruiting and the college process. I know many of you guys have work in the morning and school for the last couple of days that are left for some of us. So we'll try and make this as brief but to the point as possible, and really hopefully have you all ask questions of us. We are joined tonight by Coach Ned Balsky of Methodist University. Coach is a friend of the program. He actually coached 1 year for us way back at the start of the program, about 9 or 8 years ago. And I had the pleasure of being his assistant coach that year, which was really fun. So it's a pretty cool experience for us to have another coach here talk with us. Last year when we did college recruiting, Coach Bates, who's the Greensboro College head coach and actually was my college lacrosse coach, he spearheaded a lot of the recruiting for us. And obviously this year with him coaching, he's still around and he's a resource that we can use, but he's having to do his own recruiting, so we don't really get the chance to have him as many practices as possible. With that said, I do want to just kind of have you guys have the chance to ask questions. I'm going to briefly go through our process as Hilltoppers, what we do, and kind of the year as it looks in terms of recruiting for either juniors or seniors, and kind of update you with where we are now. And then I'm gonna let Coach kind of fill in the gaps with what he sees as a college coach, and also allow him to talk about some of the do's and the do nots of college recruiting, whether that be talking to a coach on the phone or going on a campus visit, all that fun stuff. So right now, with all of our juniors and seniors, our classes of the 23 and 24, you guys are getting ready to go play summer lacrosse. And this is a really good opportunity for you to showcase your skills in front of lots of different college coaches. So we are going to be going to Maryland with this group this coming weekend. This is going to be a really good recruiting event that we're going to be attending. You're going to see a lot of decent coaches. You also saw some this past week, or some coaches already got to see you play at Lake Norman this past weekend. So it's time for you to go ahead and start reaching out to coaches if you have not done so already. For the 23s, it's a lot more important than it is for the 24s. I would say that in the grand scheme of things, the majority of college recruiting that happens for us in our program, and really for any program, happens during the fall of a player's senior year. So during the summers leading up to that time, they're communicating coaches saying, hey, communicating with coaches saying, hey, I'm interested in your program. Especially during the senior year, there is a whole lot of time in which college coaches are looking at players more specifically. So for the Division III and Division II levels, they are really looking at seniors during that previous, or that summer before they become seniors. And then that fall, they're using that time to communicate with those players and get them onto campus so that they can visit the school when they actually have students on campus. College coaches don't really like bringing kids on campus when there's nobody there because the player doesn't really get the full college experience at that time. So what we really suggest in our program is that in the time during the summer, you should be making a list of schools that you are interested in, and you should be reaching out to those college coaches with your academic information, your name, your high school, your high school statistics, and your previous spring things about yourself are great to add in there. Adding in film is really helpful, so the college coaches can see who you are, and then saying what events you will be attending. If you're saying what events you're attending, it allows them to come see you. Also asking about prospect days and other showcases they might be attending as well is really helpful, so that you can kind of indicate that you are interested. It is always best if this comes from the player and not from the parents. Parents, you are a vital role, or you play a vital role in this process in terms of helping your son communicate with coaches, prompting them to do so, maybe proofreading their emails to make sure they're not sending grammatically incorrect things, using the subject line, etc., all that fun stuff. But it's really on the kids to communicate. I'll tell you that when I went on my college recruiting visits, I did not talk a lot to the college coaches, and my dad carried the majority of the conversations, which in hindsight, I kind of regret it. So we can talk about good questions to ask college coaches at some point here. But as we get through the summer, it's going to be on you guys to be reaching out to schools. If coaches reach out to you, it's on you to communicate back with them. There's nothing worse than having a coach say, hey, I was reaching out to so-and-so and they never got back to me. Or we talked one time and then after that, they didn't respond to us at all. If you're representing the Hilltoppers, we want you to communicate and just say no. If you're not interested, hey, Coach Nedbalski, I'm not interested in Methodist University. Coach will come back to me and say, hey, I heard from Gavin, and Gavin told me he's not interested in Methodist. I really appreciate him saying that. Do you have anybody else? There's nothing worse than having a kid just ghost and not say anything to a college coach, because then it makes us look bad, and then they're calling me asking what's going on, and then I have to find a way to tell them that you're not interested, and that's just, it makes it weird for everybody. So it's on you guys to be communicating and actually using your interpersonal skills that you've been practicing up to this point. At a certain point, you will get the chance to go on college visits. I really highly recommend that you take as many as you can throughout your time leading up to your senior years. If you are currently a senior, it's time to start trying to see lots of different schools if you have not already. Make sure you're definitely reaching out to colleges. Juniors is not as important. Obviously, the elite Division I schools, they are starting to recruit kids, but they can't really communicate. Well, they can communicate with juniors, but it's limited in the total number. I think we've had 15 different Division I lacrosse players. The majority of those kids actually did not commit until the fall of their senior years. So even the myth of the Division I schools filling up in the summer, that's actually not necessarily accurate from past experiences. So with that, that's kind of my spiel that I talked to everybody about, and I'm glad that I can knock out 26 of you guys all at one time at the basics. But Coach Nedbalski, do you want to jump in and talk about what you see in the recruiting world before we start taking some questions? You are muted.
There we go. Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
All right, cool. First off, obviously have had the pleasure of working with the Hilltoppers program, since I've been coaching at Methodist. I just finished up my 10th year as a head coach, and currently was an assistant, or prior to that was an assistant at Berry College down in Rome, Georgia, and then also was an assistant at an ODAC school for 2 years, Randolph-Macon College. So I've kind of been around. I've seen different programs. I've seen different conferences in the Southeast, and I know a lot of coaches in that area. And it's one of the things that Coach Chandler kind of talked about briefly, but just staying vocal, and as far as like emailing coaches that you're interested in attending. Ask about prospect days. I mean, those are all vital when it comes down to the recruiting process. And then also just kind of like when you send an email, talk a little bit about the school too. I know it's tough because I know it's easy to send out the mass email, and you're going to get hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of mass emails from college coaches. But if you are truly interested in a school, make it personal. Make it say, hey, I love your engineering program. I love your athletic training program. Something that a coach can immediately do some research on their end, find some more information, and talk to you about it when you have that conversation. I think that's huge. Making a connection with a coach is a big part of the college recruiting process. If you are on the phone and you're acting like, you're kind of in it and you're kind of not in it, and you're going to see a lot of coaches kind of leave you and move on to the next guy. So just, if you do ever have a conversation with a college coach, be active, be engaged, especially if it's a school that you're interested in. Don't be afraid to ask questions. It's the same thing I talk to my guys about on my team. I said, guys, you're going to college. You need to talk to your professors, ask questions, be engaging. And that's something that I think is a little difficult, especially with the new kids coming up. They're so used to having a screen in front of their face and being able to text and everything like that. And that's great. That's a great way to communicate. But actually talking with a coach, you're going to be surprised how well that works for you. When you go to the recruiting tournaments, don't be afraid to send those out too. Say, Coach, I am number this on the jersey for Hilltoppers. I am going to be attending this tournament. Make it so the coach is almost dummy proof where he's going to see you play. I'm going to the tournament this weekend, so I'm looking forward to seeing you guys up in Maryland. I'm currently up here right now, and I'm really looking forward to kind of getting a chance to see you guys play, run around a little bit. But it's important, it really is. If you have an interest in a certain school, make that coach realize, like, hey, this kid is interested in us, so now I'm interested in that kid. And then you're gonna find out, like Coach said, make your visits, plan your visits ahead of time. Most of the time, you're probably not going to do a lot of your visits until July, mid-July, end of July, and then goes into August. But ask coaches too. There's different protocols with schools still regarding COVID regulations. Like, some schools are allowing overnight visits, some schools aren't. Some schools you have to be vaccinated. That's something to ask. There are obviously a lot of colleges that are making vaccination mandatory. So if that is something that's like you're not sure about, then you got to have that ahead of you. The worst that could happen is you love a school and it's where you go and you sign commitment paper, and then you realize a month before you go there, you have to do something that you don't want to do. So find out the information prior to that, for first and foremost of it. But it's just the age that we live in, nowadays. Other than that, when it comes down to your visit, your actual first your visit on campus, I know Coach Chandler talked about that his dad did the majority of the talking. When you come to me and you actually sit down in a chair with me, I'm going to ask you questions. So if I don't hear anything from you, expect me to ask you a question to get you to talk, because that's going to be kind of the first way I see, like, is this kid coachable? Is he engaging? Does he have a pulse? Is he alive? Type thing. Like those are things coaches look for. They want you to be excited about the opportunities that you have in front of them. And then also, like Coach said, if the school, after you do a talk, or if you get an email or anything like that, if you get an email from a coach, it takes 2 seconds to say, Coach, you know what? Appreciate the email. I'm not interested in your school. Thank you so much. Good luck with your rest of recruiting. You're never going to have a coach come back and say a negative thing to you when they get that email. And if they do, you kind of know maybe that's not the coach that you want to play for in the long run anyway. But as far as the way I go about recruiting, our schedule, our timeline's a little different than maybe like a Lynchburg or WNL or Roanoke or Salisbury. On those timelines, you really want to be engaging right off the bat at the early summer for those programs. Let them know you're interested, so they see you, and they might be making some phone calls to you pretty early in the process of the summer. Don't put off those phone calls too, because if you get a phone call from a school that you really like, and it is, it might be a NESCAC school. You never know. Wherever you decide that you want to go, don't put off that phone call until the end of the summer. Like, answer it, respond to the email, and try to set up a phone call right away, because you don't want to miss out on opportunities as well. The way I do my recruiting, and I've always done it, I'm like I said, I'm in my 10th year. We typically, we'll reach out to guys that we see personally play. I'm a little different. I've kind of gone away from the mass recruiting, and I've actually, we'll still send emails and things like that. But I personally try to call kids too. I'll call Coach Chandler and I'll say, hey, what kids do you think would be good fits for us? What kids are looking at certain degrees? We have physical therapy, we have occupation therapy, we have business, engineering, a wide range of spectrum at our school. So, we try to find out which kids are interested in playing at college too. Because I know, how you doing, Kat? I know that it's definitely something that, if you have an interest and you want to go play somewhere and you want to have a major, find out if that school has that for you, or at least a second option. If you're not 100% decided on it. But that's kind of the rundown for us. My recruiting, to be honest with you, and a lot of coaches, I will say even Division II coaches, they are still recruiting right now for next year, next fall. So don't be surprised if you don't get a phone call right away and you get a phone call in December or January and you're starting a process then too. So don't give up hope, because there's a lot of coaches, there's a lot of players out there. And I think that if you really are interested in playing at the next level, you can find a home. You really can. That's the biggest thing that I would tell you through my experience as a college coach, is that if you want to play at the next level, someone will want you to play for them, guaranteed.
So that's all awesome stuff, Coach. I really appreciate you sharing that with us. And I have a couple things that I wrote down that I wanted to touch on from earlier. If you have questions, though, parents and players, please feel free to throw those into the chat here, and we'll start answering those as we go. One of the main things that came up there that I was really thinking about, as Coach Ned Bosco was talking about, is the importance of finding your fit. So we sent out a survey last night to everybody, and it really asks more questions than just what type of lacrosse team do you want to play for. We will use that resource when we talk with you about what type of schools you are interested in, to help you try and figure out what you're interested in. If you want to have a small school, if you want to have a big school, if you want to be close to home or far from home, if you want to be rural or in a city. If you were to say to me right now, Coach, I really want to play at a school that has 40,000 students and has Division II lacrosse and is only an hour from home, I'd have to tell you, well, you don't have those options. One of the things that comes up a lot, locally at least, is kids say, hey, I want to stay in North Carolina and I want to play college lacrosse, but I want to major in engineering. And that's a challenging one, because there's very limited options for that, at least at the local level. So the trick is finding our fit is a really key thing. Juniors, I know it's pretty tough for you to start trying to figure out what you want to major in. Seniors are probably starting to think about that. You might be taking AP classes or IB classes and figuring out, what types of things you think you're interested in. You very well could get to school and change your major multiple times, and that's okay. That's part of finding out what you're interested in and what your fit would be. But also in finding your fit, figuring out what level you're at. It's probably everybody's dream here to play at Duke or UNC. But there's a very, very limited chance that would happen for any of us. So it would be really important for us to have honest conversations about where we think that you are going to be landing. I would say there are a lot of kids who poo-poo the idea of playing at a Division I or Division II school without even having seen it. You can go and play for Division III lacrosse team that plays the same caliber of lacrosse as a mid-tier Division I lacrosse team. And have just a great experience, and maybe even get on the field earlier. So finding your fit and a place that would be of interest to you is really helpful. The next thing I want to say is just use your resources. So part of the reason why we say, hey, never say no to somebody, or never ghost somebody, or shut the door for somebody else, is that we do have resources that we can use. For instance, I was helping a young man recently about trying to find a school, and I actually did not have resources at that school. And I reached out to a college friend of mine who did know somebody. The college lacrosse recruiting world is very, very small. There are, probably somewhere between 3 to 5 coaches on any college staff, and they all go to the same events throughout the summer. And, they pull up a lawn chair next to somebody on one field for an hour, and then they bump to the next, and there's somebody else beside them that they end up talking to. So it's really easy for me to call my friend Duncan, and then have him call, a coach at a big NESCAC school in New England to help make a connection for somebody else. So those resources are always out there. So if you're interested in something, especially if it's not local, let us know and we can help you try and figure that out. There is a question in the chat about club lacrosse. Club lacrosse does tend to operate a little bit differently in terms of the recruiting world. I have only ever seen, I think it's 3 college club teams recruiting at summer tournaments, in my experience. And in both those instances, both those 2 teams, or 2 of those 3 teams, ended up going Division I within some of the following years. So they're not necessarily out looking. If you're interested in playing club lacrosse, I think the big one in this area is probably NC State. A lot of kids end up going to NC State and then playing club lacrosse. That tends to be a process in which you try and go to the school first, and then you join the lacrosse team and you communicate with the club coaches as you get to school, or as you've committed to go there. So that one actually tends to be a big one for kids who want to do engineering, just because they want to go to a big school and do engineering. And if you want to go to a big school and do engineering in North Carolina, you're probably going to play club lacrosse. But that's how that process works.
Can I add in something to that too?
Sure, please.
So with the club side of thing, guys, the great thing that you have access to is social media. Club lacrosse is going wild with social media as well. So log into your Instagram, whatever you got, Twitter. Try to find their link to them and say, hey, I'm going to be an incoming freshman. I have an interest in your lacrosse program. If you do that, guarantee you'll probably get a response back saying, yeah, we do our tryouts in the fall. These are the fee, make sure you ask what are the additional fees to play club lacrosse, things like that, because that's obviously a big proponent of the club side of it too, is that you'll be paying additional fees for it. But you can kind of get some information before you even step foot on campus in the fall through those social media sites, because a lot of times you're not going to be able to find their club coaches on the main website. Even if you call the admissions department, they don't have a clue who those people are either. So I would say try to find the social media side of it and link up that way. You can get a lot of your answers done through that.
Awesome. Well, again, I'm encouraging parents, players, please put stuff in the chat if you have questions. We'd love to answer your specific questions. Coach, I do have a couple pre-written ones here for you.
Sure.
So we just talked about the recruiting world, right? This is the recruiting is a lot like dating. It's an analogy I like to make a lot.
Yep.
It's a lot of you going out there and saying, hey, I kind of like you. Do you like me too? It's an important thing for you to try and do. But once you actually make that connection with somebody, you actually have to apply and then kind of commit. So let's talk about admissions, Coach. So can you walk us through what the admissions process is like at your school? And it tends to be that admissions, most places operates the same way.
Yeah. So you're going to have, when you go through your application process, you're either going to deal with the Common App, which is Common App. Obviously, you can list a bunch of schools all at once, or some schools don't deal with the Common App, and that's something you can ask the coach themselves to say, hey, do you know where I could find the link to your application process? Typically, it's usually you click the main website, hit admissions, and they'll say like apply now, and you'll easily find how to get through the application process. What I would recommend you guys doing now, if you're still in school and you're a current senior, what I would recommend doing is seeing if you can get an unofficial transcript emailed to you from your high school, because a lot of colleges can base their acceptance off that unofficial transcript from this past year. As long as you have that, and then you send in obviously your test scores if you've taken your test scores. Some schools are test exempt. Ask that question. If they're not test exempt, then you know that, hey, you gotta find your way to take ACT, SAT, whatever route you feel is more comfortable. But those are all questions that you can ask in the admission side of things when you get to that point. But our biggest thing is what usually delays us the most when it comes down to the application process is your high school not sending us your transcript. So if you can get an unofficial transcript in your hands and have it in a document where you can say, here you go, coach, send this to your admissions department, bam, they can get you accepted more times than not. But that's usually the slowest part of the applications process, is getting that transcript in from your high school. So that's why I say, if you're still in school now, go to your counselor, talk to them, see if you can get an unofficial transcript from this year. I know it might not have this past term in it because you haven't completed it yet, but at least you have an idea ballpark where you're going to be at. And then obviously once you get accepted, you will still need an official transcript to be fully admitted into the university. But at least you have your acceptance letter, everything like that, and you'll get an idea of packaging. The next step after that, October, FAFSA. Make sure you're filling out your FAFSA and tag all the schools that you want to be sent to. Even if you don't think you're going to qualify for FAFSA money, fill it out. because a lot of schools also offer, like our school in particular, will offer MU grant money. So if you don't think you're going to receive anything from the federal government, we might be able to assist you with some more money through our MU grant funds. But a lot of schools need your FAFSA to show that before we pass that out and give that to you. So please make sure to fill that out, and that's usually around October was when you can start submitting that document there.
So real quickly from that, Coach, just in case anyone doesn't know what FAFSA is, that is federal money that you can apply for to assist you in the application process. That is something that your coaches can help you with. College coaches and their admissions departments, they work pretty much hand in hand together, to the point where I'm sure that admissions counselors are trying to tell coaches, hey, please leave our office so we can get some stuff done. When I helped out at Guilford for a year, there was a daily march across campus to go check in on the admissions process for student kids so that we could call over and say, hey, this kid is interested. He's trying to finalize, or, hey, financial aid department, so-and-so is getting X amount at another school. Can we please help, make it a little bit cheaper for him to attend, because it may come down to money. I would advise against trying to turn your college commitment into a bartering chip to see who can get there the cheapest, or what school will give it the cheapest, because at a certain point, college coaches and financial aid departments are just going to say it's not worth it. But that is something that does take place if there is significant financial need. That is something that coaches can help you with, or they can help you try and find other scholarships, when in that process. So there's that. Do we have other questions about the application process from you guys? I will also add, when Coach asked or talked about your transcripts and getting an unofficial transcript, it is very helpful if you can send myself or the Caroline Hilltopper email account your unofficial transcripts as well. When I am communicating with coaches on your behalf, if you are asking me to do so, some kids want to do it on their own, some families want to do it by themselves. If you want my help, it is helpful for me to have that on file so that I can share that. I actually was CC'd on an email today with another coach that was interested in a certain player, and they asked for the transcript, and I was able to communicate because we had that. So please share that with us. It's also helpful when you're communicating with coaches via email that you CC our club email address. That allows me to say to the coaches, hey, this kid is worthwhile, or he's very coachable, he's a hardworking kid, or maybe he forgot to tell you that he also is a captain on the soccer team, or any small little thing. It's helpful for us to be able to sign off, and it gives us a little ability to say, hey, this kid is worthwhile. I do think that coaches, they respect their peers a lot, and whenever another coach says, hey, you want this kid, it's really helpful. I will also add, the way you act from now until you go to another school is really important. I have had coaches before reach out and say, hey, what can you tell me about this kid? And a certain player was an absolute jerk in a high school lacrosse game. I didn't have anything positive to say. They do care about certain behaviors and the way that you act. That's really important, so that if we reach out to your rival high school, or if a coach reaches out to the head coach at your rival high school and they are curious about who you are as a player, or what they can tell you, what would they say about you? You'd want that to be something that's positive and not negative. So
I would say after the acceptance letter and everything like that, a big question that I always get is, all right, coach, what's the next step? Like, I want to come to Methodist. I want to you pay your deposit. What's the next step? What do I got to do? So for Division III, it's pretty simple. It's you pay your deposit, and that's kind of like your verbal official commitment to Division III school. At that point, we can send you a signing form, Division III signing form. You can sign it with your D2 buddies or D1 buddies, whoever's doing it at your school. You just ask the coach, say, hey, coach, can I have that form? Yep, boom. Then you have that form from each individual school, and you got that opportunity to do that. For Division II, They obviously have, different timelines, things like that. But I will tell you guys, I mean, there's Division II coaches, like I said before, still recruiting for next year's class. And that, that's a timeline thing that I think gets lost in the shuffle is, oh, my buddy committed, so I got to commit, and I got to make this commitment quick, or else I'm not going to get, an opportunity. And I will tell you, listen to Coach Chandler about that. Go visit schools. Take your time with the process. Enjoy it. Meet with coaches. See different schools. Because the worst thing that you can do is go to one school or hear from one coach and you make a commitment, and then it's just not what you want. And then you're in the process of the transfer, and you're trying to get your credits to move over to another school. And then does that school work out and things like that? Use this time wisely in the recruiting process. Go see schools, go talk to multiple coaches, and enjoy it. That's the biggest thing that I would tell you through the rest of the process with it. So, but yeah, once you pay your deposit with us, that's kind of your verbal commitment to us. Obviously coaches are going to be different. Some coaches, might call you once after your commitment. Don't take that as my coach doesn't love me. Like, I guarantee you that coach is ecstatic that he's got you on his roster. He's trying to finish the rest of his class. So it's not that, if you wrote to him and you say, hey, coach, what's going on? Guarantee he's going to talk to you. He's going to ask you how you're doing, things like that. And, he's excited about you coming in next year. It's just, every coach is going to be trying to finish up their class going to the next group. So they're excited about you. They'll answer any questions that you have. Don't be afraid after you make a commitment to ask questions too. Like, while you're in that committed phase, hey, is there anything that I need? What's the roommate situation like? Do I want to live with a lacrosse roommate? Do I not want to live with a lacrosse roommate? Those are all things that come after that deposit pay. That feel free to ask anytime.
All right. So I don't see any other questions, Coach. So I'll go ahead and wrap up unless anything comes into the chat.
Okay. Any parent questions?
I'll let them type. I'll give them a minute here, but I'll go ahead and put it this way for everybody.
Yeah.
We have a big weekend coming up, and then we have another actually week after that, and there's another opportunity in July where if anyone wants to come to another recruiting opportunity with us, we would love to have you come up to Baltimore, and I'll be getting an email about that out shortly to everybody. Coming up, if you don't have a highlight film yet from either your spring season or previous fall seasons, go ahead and put one together. We are assembling film. We recorded all the 2024 films from this past weekend, and we are purchasing the film from the 2023 teams from this past weekend. So we're going to have that on a Huddle account. If you want access to that, you can get it from me. You just shoot me an email to the Hilltopper email account, and I will get you access to that film so you can put together highlights. Get film together if you don't already have it. Send emails to coaches that you are interested in. Make sure that you CC myself. I will reach out on your behalf after you do so. I'll probably reach out to you and talk to you about the schools that you're interested in. If you haven't filled out our survey, please make sure you fill out that survey so that I can know what you're potentially interested in. That is a great thing for you to do with your family, so that you can talk about the type of financial contributions that can be made to go to college. You can talk about the types of things that you might be interested in, whether you want to be close to home, far from home, whatever that might be. Fill that out so that we can have a conversation specifically about what you're interested in and figuring out what fit would be best for you in terms of if you're a Division III lacrosse player, D1, D2 club lacrosse player, if you want to go to junior college, whatever that might be. If you're interested in not going to college and playing lacrosse whatsoever, we have tons of experience with just colleges in general. Feel free to reach out. I'm more than willing to help you with that as well. From there, make sure you're communicating with coaches. And when communication's a two-way street, make sure you're listening to them and communicating back with them, and that you are also starting conversations and asking questions. And then from there, once you see if there is a potential interest between the two of you guys, go on campus, meet with them at school, meet the team, see if it's a good fit, and then go through the admissions process if it makes sense. So that's the process in a nutshell. If you have any questions, now's the time. If not, we will go ahead and wrap this up, and I will send out this information again There is a question about highlight film and length in the chat. I say highlights film should probably be somewhere between 3 to 5 minutes, and probably never more than 5 minutes. I would say that coaches are probably only going to watch the first 30 seconds, and the first 2 to 3 clips should be the best plays of your season, or the best plays of your life. You want it to be something that's really wowing, that makes a coach want to continue to watch and continue to be interested in you. There's nothing worse than sifting through a highlight film and seeing that, the first, three clips are a kid taking a shot that misses the goal, and then there being some nice plays after that. That's not worthwhile. That's a good way to get yourself not recruited. Show your best things and show a little bit of diversity. Show yourself sprinting. That's a big one. Don't show yourself just catching and finishing on the crease. Show yourself playing defense and running the end line and at full speed. If you have a left hand, showing your left hand and your right hand.
I can take the next one if you want.
Sure. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, from the parent perspective, don't be afraid to send an email to a college coach. I think that obviously college coaches want to hear from the player themselves more than likely, because that's obviously who they're going to be dealing with. But if you have, a number of schools that are on your list, I mean, you're more than welcome to reach out to college coaches as well. I will tell you that when it does come down to it, this is a statement that I always bring up during our one-on-one conversations with the student. When it comes to playing time, things like that, it's between the coach and the player. And the way that I always talk about it is, if you have, if you know that so-and-so is struggling in school, or something happened with a family member, like, those are times to talk to college coaches. That's a huge thing. But playing time, things like that, that's more for that player and the coach to really communicate. But at the beginning process, if you want to reach out to a coach or two, go on to their college website, look up their athletic page, hit their men's lacrosse page, and I guarantee you're going to find their email on every single website. So that's the best way to contact a college coach from any perspective, student or parent, from that side of things. So, but just kind of know that going into it. Like Chandler talked about before, it's also, the big part of this is your son is now going into kind of being an adult, and the next stage of his life is where he's developing his independence. I always look at the playing time type thing, and this is the meeting that I have, and you'll hear it from me if you do come. But when it comes down to playing time, it's just like a job interview as far as asking for a raise. You, the parent, will not be asking me, the boss, for your son's raise when he's working for me. So that's kind of the way I bring it about in a nutshell. They have to have that independence. They have to have those tough conversations. They got to want to talk about, hey, why am I not doing this? Why, what do I need to work on, coach? Things like that. Those are all things that college coaches want to know. And they'll say, hey, you know what? Come by and I'll show you on film. This is our office. This is what you're struggling in. Even if you don't play, I do that all the time with my guys that don't play. I bring them in and I say, hey, guys, like, if you're struggling in a concept, come in. I'll show you it on film, and hopefully you can kind of understand that to get a better IQ going forward with it. But I think that hopefully that's the way that you wanted that answered. The best way to go about it is going on the school's website, hitting the men's lacrosse tab, find the coach's contact information, send them an email.
And I'll also just tag along with that as well. The portion about the playing time and the being successful on their own in college aspect, go ahead and start pushing your children to do that now. There's nothing worse for me as a high school coach than getting conversations from parents about playing time. I'd rather have that conversation with the player, and I think it's really, really helpful for them as students and athletes to start having those conversations with their high school coaches. Same thing in the classroom. If they're getting a bad grade, having them talk to their teacher first. A good way to do that as parents is to say, hey, I'll reach out, but only after you've done it first. Starting that process now is going to make your child more successful when they get to college and they have to stand on their own 2 feet?
Great question, though.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So next question is, what are the things that the boys need to listen for when talking to coaches to know if it's a good fit or not? And what are good questions to ask? Ooh, it's good. Coach,
Yeah.
do you want to try and take this one?
Yeah. So when you're listening to a college coach, really try to just focus in if you can. I know it's tough because we live in a generation of instant, but really kind of see where he sees your son fitting in on his team. He might have a conversation with you and ask the question, where do I see him fitting? Is he going to be an attackman? Is he going to be a midi? If he's a defender, is he LSM? Is he a close defender? What's your goalie situation like? How many goalies do you have? How many goalies do you want to bring in? Those are questions, especially on the goalie side of the thing. I think is important. Finding out numbers. How many kids are you looking to bring in this year? That's a good question to ask. Hopefully you did a little bit of research and looked at their roster size. Do they have 55 guys on their roster already? Are they only graduating 3 seniors? Those are things that you can kind of come locked and loaded with a little bit, where you have that information ahead of time, and you're going to be asking good questions for the coach. You can straight out ask the coach too. Do you see my son, finding the field early on in his career, or is this going to be a process? Is this going to be more of like, hey, am I going to get developed over my 4 years? Every coach is going to answer you. They're not going to shy away from it. So that's something that you guys can come and ask those questions about. But as far as fit goes, also ask the questions like, hey, is this what is the campus culture like? Because obviously the lacrosse culture is going to be what you're going to fall in love with, but like, ask, what is the culture like at campus? Is it diverse? Is it a group of kids that go home on the weekends and nobody's around? Ask those questions, because I think that's something that you're gonna hear from each coach. Also, when you do the morning tours on Saturday morning, take into effect that they are college students and they're going to sleep in till 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. You can ask Chandler when he was a college student. He probably didn't wake up till 3 in the afternoon on a Sunday. So
I was actually the tour guide that gave those tours.
oh, there we go. You see, he was a good guy. There you go.
And it was very begrudgingly.
Yeah.
The minimum wage was not worth the lack of sleep. I'll also add that all the questions the coach just asked are great questions for players to ask. I think asking what most of the kids on the team do for fun outside of lacrosse, asking what the college coach themselves is most proud of in their team, and I think that's a good. Anytime you can get them to talk about themselves is a good thing. For people who are shy like myself, who don't necessarily know what to say, just saying, "Hey, I haven't been on many college visits before. What types of things should I be asking? Like, what types of things am I not asking that I should know?" That's a good thing for a coach to know. I think college coaches have enough experiences talking to kids who don't really know how to talk, that they're willing to help you out in that process as well. So if you don't know what to say, just say that, and that's better than absolutely nothing. Another question for you, coach, here is how does the transfer portal work? Are you recruiting as much as high school players? And I guess, have you seen that, probably more importantly, have you seen that change the landscape of recruiting? I think I kind of know the answer, but I'll let you.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely has. And I think it will, the transfer portal will be even more over the next two years, at least, with the COVID years coming back. There's some kids in our conference that are playing for their 6th year of college lacrosse because of COVID. So, they may be a senior, but that's another question you can ask. How many of your guys are graduating and moving on, or are they coming back, for a 5th year or a 6th year? But yeah, as far as the transfer portal goes, the way I go about it is typically I really recruit hard with the high school kids that I really like a lot. And then usually right around April, March, April is when we kind of start finishing up a class with some transfers and things like that, where we might have a hole. Hey, I missed out on getting a face-off guy this year, so I got to look to see if there's a transfer portal where there's a face-off guy. So that's kind of the way I go about with my transfer portal. I think that too many times coaches might buy into the transfer portal too much, and then you got a whole bunch of guys coming from all different cultures, and it can be chaotic when they arrive on your campus because they're not what you recruited in the first place. So, but every coach is different. Every coach is looking for an edge, and I think that's definitely getting used a lot more these days for sure. But Coach, I don't know what you were thinking.
Yeah, I mean, one of the main things I've heard is that it's really pushing more opportunities for lower level teams in terms of Division II, Division III teams to have more players come in from the high school level that maybe weren't taken at the Division I or the higher D2 levels in the past. So some kids are committing to quote unquote lower tier schools, and it's actually making there be a little bit more parity in the sport because more talented kids are ending up at lower tiers. Not because they're not talented, but because they don't want to be the 47th man on a roster. And it's making it interesting. So the Division III schools, they're having people transfer in, but it's not, those players are of higher talent than what would have transferred in before. So it's creating a little bit more diversity on rosters, and it's making for a little more parity in the sport, which is kind of an interesting thing.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, I think that's the majority of our questions, and we've gone almost 50 minutes. I will upload this to YouTube and let our parents who weren't here listen. Coach, I really appreciate you being here. I also really appreciate, actually just got another one here. Do you want to take one more?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay,
I'm good, Coach.
The question is, what can you tell us about winning a winning program in an easy division versus a competitive team in a tough division, and how should we think about that? I'll just talk about my experience real quickly.
Go for it.
So I played at Guilford College, which was an ODAC school, Old Dominion Athletic Conference school. We had 4 to 5 top 25 Division III teams in our conference each year, which made our season really interesting. We would play some easy non-conference games, and throughout the course of my year, or my 4 years, we really improved to the point where we were making the actual playoff towards the end, which was really fun. But it meant that you would play some of the best teams in the nation, and sometimes you would get absolutely hammered. When we played Lynchburg, I don't think it was ever close. But then there were times when we played a Roanoke team that was top 15, or we played a WNL team that was top 12, and we would hang. And there were actually, I think, 3 different times we went into overtime with one of those big schools, and it was really fun. I think that balance is interesting. It's great. I think everybody would prefer to be on the team that's the top 25 team and one of the starters or one of the main people who's playing. I think that's just how we all naturally are. I think that as long as you are on a team like this, if you're on an easy team that's winning a lot of games, you're going to play one of those teams eventually. If you're in a tough conference, you're definitely going to play one of those teams. I really enjoyed my experience because it made it really competitive and really fun. I never had the easy experience, but that's just my take. I think there's not necessarily a downside to either of those as long as you are getting the most out of your college experience. Again, going to college is a lot more than just playing lacrosse. I hope that playing lacrosse is a great thing for you. But at the end of the day, you hopefully take a degree, or you take something that you've learned from your degree that will carry you forward in life and make you feel like you're being successful. So you want to add on?
Yeah, no, I think, Coach is right. Again, that goes right back to fit. What do you want out of your college experience? Do you want an opportunity to try to make an impact for a team and be the guy, be an all conference player? That doesn't necessarily happen a lot, in those tougher divisions at the bottom end. It's difficult to get to. Competing for a championship, those are things. Do you want to try to have an opportunity to go to an NCAA tournament? It's tough, like Coach Chandler said. You're playing the top 25 every year, so you're gonna have a tough road ahead of you to get there. But again, it's what you want out of your college experience, and I think that's that's something I'll say. I've never been one to push somebody away from another school. Like if they want to go there, like, hey, that's awesome. They're playing college lacrosse. They've done their research. They want to go there. That's awesome. I only try to recruit kids that want to come to me and be a part of our program and do, try to compete every single year. That's our goal. And the other thing I'll tell you with that too is we play a lot of teams out of conference that are in those conferences. So we played in 2017. We played the Division II reigning national champion, Salisbury. So we try to mix it up, and we're playing teams from outside the region. We're playing teams outside the conference. So you get that experience too. You're going to get an opportunity to play some really great teams, no matter where you go. It's just what you want to be a part of. And I think it just comes down to that. Not every coach does that. But I think that it's good to try to mix it up and play some different teams out of conference and give your kids a different experience. Because, if you're constantly just going 15-0 and you haven't played anybody, it's kind of tough, when you actually play somebody in the playoffs. So, but I think either way, there's no wrong way to go about it. It's your fit, it's your experience, like Coach said, and just find out what you really want. Put that pros and cons out there, as far as both what you want out of your experience, and you'll find the right fit.
Good stuff, Coach. Really appreciate having you on here. This has been really educational, and I hope this is something that the kids have learned from and the families have learned from. Guys, if you have any questions for us, please feel free to reach out via email. I'm sure Coach Nedbalski would love to reach out or to communicate with you as well if you have other questions. And I can't say enough about him as a coach. They're definitely one of the things I will tell people is in the recruiting process is that coach somebody that I would want to play for? Coach Nedbalski is definitely one of those guys. I went through that with one of my players, Cy Horner, who's an alumni from the Hilltoppers, who's playing for him now. And deciding between two schools, Cy asked me where he should go, and I said I can't say anything wrong about Coach Nedbalski, so I'll say that that's probably the one. Now that's not hopefully the reason, but find the right fit. I hope that's something that came out today. Feel free to reach out. I will be sending out that survey again and this link to everybody so if they want to rewatch this video. So unless there are any other questions, appreciate you guys. And we'll
Thank you. Good luck this weekend, Coach. Good luck this weekend, guys.
See ya.